Om. So this is a continuation of the Living Gita, written by Swami Satchidananda, with commentary by Swami Satchidananda, and we are on chapter 3. The chapter is called Karma Yoga, the Yoga of Action. It's about 10 pages, so it's going to be a long chapter. So up to now commentary. Up to now we have seen something of the philosophy about the self or Atman, and touched on the practical side of Karma Yoga, which helps us go about realizing the Atman. We also covered the qualifications of a realized person, whom the Gita calls one of steady wisdom. In this chapter, the Yoga of Action, we'll learn the secret of action. After hearing these first teachings by Sri Krishna, Arjuna still has a little doubt and asks, so Sloka 1, we're getting into it. Since you teach that the path of wisdom is better than the path of action, Krishna, why are you encouraging me to do this terrible act of war? Commentary. Arjuna is asking, why don't you just allow me to sit and experience the truth right away? Your words seem perplexing. Sloka 2. I'm confused by what seems to be a contradiction. Please tell me a sure way to attain the highest. 3. The blessed Lord said, Arjuna, in the beginning I gave the world a twofold path, the way of discerning wisdom, Jnana Yoga, and the way of selfless action, Karma Yoga. Commentary. For active people, there's the path of karma, action. And for people who can sit and analyze depending entirely on their intelligence, the path of wisdom, jnana, also known as samkhya, is recommended. Some immediately will think, okay, I'm intelligent, that suits me very well. It's normal to think this way. Even if I suggest that you get involved in some work, you may wonder, does this mean he thinks I'm a little dull? Why can't he recommend the path of wisdom for me? That's a natural reaction. So Sri Krishna explains. 4. Ceasing to do things will not make you actionless, nor will you rise to perfection simply by renouncing actions. The karma or desire to act should fall away by itself, like a fully ripened fruit dropping from the tree. If an unripe fruit, seeing the ripe fruit dropping from the tree, also wants to drop off, it will have to force itself. Renouncing action should come automatically instead of you forcing it by insisting, I renounce. Instead of trying to push the desire out, you can develop a natural state of desirelessness in which you don't feel the need of anything. Then you've truly renounced. You can't force renunciation, but you can prepare your environment for this and let yourself mature. 5. No one is free of actions even for a moment, because everyone is moved to do things by the qualities of nature. Commentary. The qualities of nature, known as 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, are the 3 qualities that function through prakriti or nature. They are similar to positive, negative, and neutral forces. We have 3 gunas even in an atom: protons, electrons, and neutrons. What are the differences between elements? The number of protons, the number of electrons, the number of neutrons. In the same way, if sattva is a bit predominant in someone, that person is said to be a spiritual seeker. Someone with a little more rajas, a few more electrons, just runs around. After all, what are the body and mind? Nothing but the same prakriti. Nature is composed of natural elements, which themselves are the expression of the subtle essence, which is pure consciousness. Everything that has manifested you can call prakriti, mother nature. All expressions of that essence are called the mother. The unexpressed one is the father. The Father, the essence of everything, cannot express himself. He must express or manifest through the Mother. or as the mother. Therefore, know that anything and everything that is expressed is the mother. In this sense, all we see is nothing but mother. Don't think that only when you have a feminine body you are a mother. We're all part of nature. That's why we say Mother Nature. As long as we are still identifying with our bodies and minds, we'll be tossed constantly by these three gunas. That tossing about can be called action. Even your hunger and thirst is action. To fulfill the hunger and thirst, there's more action. Everyone must pass through the Prakriti, but gradually, when you're ripe enough in your wisdom, you just drop away from her. The Prakriti won't affect you anymore. Though you've dropped away, you haven't disappeared. You're still in the same cosmos, but Prakriti won't affect you. Hot, man. All right. It's something like a patient who goes to the hospital to be cured. Until you're well, you have to be there. You can't just jump up and say, I came for a week only, I'm going now. While you're there, you make use of the hospital and its facilities in order to be healed. On the other hand, after you're completely healed, you might still say, this bed is so comfortable and the food is so good. There are sweet-looking nurses all around. Why can't I stay a couple days more? But now you'll be pushed out without your even trying to go. Renunciation comes the same way, automatically. Even if you don't want it, it will come when you're ready. The mother Prakriti will nip you until you get out. The mother bird pecks at the young one. Now you have grown wings. You can go around by yourself. Go. That's what we see in nature. That's Mother Nature's function. When you're ready, she won't bother to have you here constantly feeding you. She has too much to do. There are so many children to take care of, but until that time, you should just wait. Be under her loving care. Learn all you have to learn. 6. Whoever stills the body as if seated in meditation, but mentally continues to think about sense object, is deluded and a hypocrite. I didn't mess up the word. Is deluded and a hypocrite. Many times we think I'm fascinating. I'm not going to eat anything today. Many times we think I'm fasting. I'm not going to eat anything today. Yes, I'm fascinating, but you may be fasting. All right. But what about tomorrow morning? What shall I eat then? Physically, we may not be eating, but mentally we are. An action is evaluated by a motive, not by the action itself. Crimes committed without any planning are even pardoned sometimes. Even murder, if you prove that you have not concentrated on it ahead of time and that it just came up all of a sudden unpremeditated, then you might be excused. But even if you don't actually commit the crime, if it's proved you were concentrating on it and planning it, then you'll get the punishment. This shows that the mind is more important than the action. Often so-called renunciates will say, I have nothing, no attachments, I don't desire to do anything, but in fact, they're doing many things mentally. Maybe they go into a cave and sit there alone, but mentally they bring the entire world with them. That's not true renunciation. Meanwhile, a king ruling a country could still be a renunciate if he has no selfish desires. King Janaka, for example, was a ruler of a country, but many sages and saintly seekers went there to be initiated by him. Yajnavalkya was a well-known guru, a great Yanin, a renunciate, but he sent his own son, Suka, to King Janaka to be initiated into sannyasa, a life of renunciation. Look at that. A renunciate sage sending his son to get initiated by a king who is ruling a country. It shows that it's not your position in the world, but the attitude behind what you're doing that makes you a renunciate or householder. It all depends on how much house you're holding in your heart. So the mind and its attitudes should be seen behind this structure. 7. In order to excel mentally, control the senses, let go all attachments, and engage the body in karma yoga, selfless service. Commentary. That means that the mind is totally in control, but he just allows his body to do certain acts of the sake of the actions themselves. Here a king of discipline. Here a kind of discipline is necessary. For example, you might be preparing food, which we call prasad, to be offered at the altar. You sometimes make quite delicious dishes. From the very beginning, your feeling is that you're doing something for God, and it should be very fine and tasty. According to the Hindu way of thinking, you shouldn't even smell or taste it. If you've already tasted it by your senses, through your eyes, nose, or tongue, it's already eaten. It becomes unfit to be offered. Complete control of the senses is necessary. Of course, in preparing something for another, sometimes you taste it, but not for the sake of your own tongue. You want your guest to have the delicious dish. The action is not for your own sake. If you do the act this way, you're cooking, and yet you are not cooking because you aren't cooking for your personal enjoyment. This is a case where even though you act, you personally are not acting. It's called inaction in action. 8. Do your duty. Such action is better than doing nothing. If you attempt to renounce all actions, it would be impossible to maintain your body. Commentary. In this chapter, Sri Krishna also talks about sacrificial ritual yajna. Which often is thought to mean a fire ceremony. You sit, start a fire, and offer everything to the fire. But it's not the true yajna. That's only the outward expression. Krishna explains what yajna really means. The world is so 9. The world is bondage when actions are done just for your own sake. Therefore, Arjuna, make every action a sacrifice, utterly free of personal attachment. Commentary. Anything you do for the benefit of others is true yajna. Not even a trace should be for your own personal benefit. If some benefit does also just happen to come to you, all right, let it come. Don't be repulsed by it, but don't do it for the sake of what will come to you. 10. After creating humankind together with yajna, sacrifice, the Creator said, through sacrifices you will increase yourself and get everything that you want. Commentary. Prajapati is the word used here for the Creator. Praja means the created. Pati means Lord. The Lord of the created is the Creator. Praja literally means citizen. You are the Praja of the country. But here it doesn't mean only human beings. Everything that exists, visible and invisible are all Prajas. God is the one who causes the creation. When God created the beautiful Garden of Eden, God didn't say a word to all those plants, fruits, flowers, trees, and animals. God could have said at least something to the dogs and cats, but just created them and allowed them to play around. God didn't even say anything to the snake or the scorpion. God could have said, don't sting anybody. But no, God didn't say anything. It was only when God created humans that God said, my children don't eat the fruit. Why? Because only at the human level have we been given the freedom to choose right or wrong. So naturally, there should be guidance also. According to the sloka, the guidance from God is, well, humanity, I have created you, and I'm giving you the ability to sacrifice, to make an offering. By this, you propagate yourself. Let this yajna or sacrifice be your milking cow. Of course, it doesn't mean just a regular cow. This cow represents everything that you want, you get. According to the Hindu mythology, there is a cow known as Kamadhanu. Kamadino. Kama means desire, Danu means the giver. Whatever you want, you get. If you have a Kamadino at your home, all your desires are fulfilled. You simply want it, you get it. Do we have such a Kamadino today? We do. It's not that there's only mythological cows somewhere. No, everybody has been given the Kamadino, a boon-giving device. There is also a tree known as the boon-giving tree. I feel that this is a tree that became transformed into the Christmas tree, a tree with all the gifts underneath. It's a boon-giving tree. Just go there, think what you want, and you get it. The great woman Saint Avayar once said, even after having gone and sat under the boon-giving tree, if you ask for a bit of fruit, that's your destiny. It's ready to give everything, but it won't give it to you unless you ask, and you should know what to ask for. Once a fellow went into the jungle and became very tired. He found a beautiful tree and sat beneath it, but the ground was thorny. He couldn't lie down anywhere. How nice it would be if I had a small cot. The minute he thought of it, he found himself sitting on a cot. Oh boy, I have a cot. He lay down. This is very comfortable, but I'm also hungry. I could use something to eat, maybe a banana. Immediately, a bunch of bananas appeared. What's this? He couldn't believe his eyes. It seems that whatever I want, I can get. I can get here. Then how about some gourmet cooking? Immediately, plates filled with delicacies, delicious dishes, pudding, and desserts appeared. He ate sumptuously and then thought, it would be nice if there were someone to massage my feet to put me to sleep. Even as he thought of it, there was already a beautiful angel-like person there massaging his feet. He became excited. Oh, it looks like whatever I'm thinking I'm getting. Now I have a comfortable bed, a good sumptuous meal, and somebody to massage my feet. But what if, while I'm getting the massage, I fall asleep and suddenly a tiger comes from the jungle? What will happen? Immediately he heard the roar, and the tiger appeared and devoured him. What to do with such a person? He was under a boon-giving tree. Whatever he wanted, he got. Sometimes people are like that. They can get everything, but they don't know what to ask for. That's why sacrifice was given by the Creator. Don't look for anything just for yourself. Let your life be a sacrifice, yajna. If you use this guidance, which I give you, certainly you'll prosper. In order to prosper, the most important thing, the one and only thing, is living a dedicated life. Let your entire life be a sacrifice. That means renounce all your personal interests and personal desires. Live for the sake of others. A sacrifice is the law of life. This is said only to humankind because all other species are already doing it. Everything in this creation seems to exist to be used by others. Their very life is a sacrifice. They'll live not for themselves, but for others. They are still under that direct guidance of nature's law. No other species in this creation has the freedom humankind has. In nature's college, they're still under the control of the cosmic law. In a simple devotee's language, every minute God simply tells them what to do and they do it. They never misbehave. Remember, we all lived that life before. During our evolution, we got all the lessons. When we were grass, we learned something. When we became a little bush, we learned something else. We learned something else. When we became a worm, we learned something. We learned when we were cats, dogs, scorpions, foxes, and cows. Sometimes traces from the past are revealed. We hear people say, don't trust him, he is a cunning fox. Why? because that fox-like memory seems to be predominant even in this life. Look at that woman. For every little thing, she barks at others. That part was predominant. My goodness, he stings you for everything. Or don't stand there like a tree, man. We lived all those lives. We all have those samskaras, mental impressions, buried as part of our subconscious treasure. After having learned all that directly under the guidance of Sri Krishna, now at the human level, he says, okay, I taught you everything. I held your hand, walked you everywhere and told you what to do. Now I want to test you. That means I give you the freedom. Let me see how you can use your education. That's what is happening at the level of humanity. I have been bringing you up to live the life of sacrifice, says the Creator. I'm simply reminding you that if you continue to live the same sacrificial life, you will prosper. So if any individual wants to prosper, to lead a comfortable and peaceful life, a life that's headed upward, he or she should keep in mind this question. Am I leading a dedicated life? Is my life a sacrificial life? The entire world is a sacrificial altar. We should be constantly sacrificing ourselves. That's yajna. 11. Through sacrifice, you cherish the gods, devas, and they cherish you. Thus, loving one another, you reap the very highest. Commentary. After giving the way of sacrifice, he says, come on, if you do this, the devas, the divine beings, will be happy with your sacrifice. So, offer everything to the divine beings. In their return, let them bless you. In this way, you are helping each other. Here, the devas need not literally mean some beings up there. All are divine. When you sacrifice your life and do things for others' sake, the others in return will do the same to you. Their goodwill is always present. As Tiruvalluvar says in the Tirukural, if a person has decided to stay away from killing to eat, he will not kill. He will not eat meat. Neither does he kill, nor does he eat what is killed by others. Such a person will be worshipped by all the creatures of the world. They will simply love him, praise, and worship him. Even a wild dog will wag his tail at such person, sensing he is nonviolent. You haven't caused violence to any animal. They know that. Don't think that only we have modern scientific communication. The plant and animal kingdoms have their own communication media. If you have saved the life of an animal somewhere, and if you come across another animal who may not be of the same species, it will express its gratitude. Yes, you saved my brother. I know, I got the message. If you sacrifice for others, then all the souls will appreciate your sacrifice and bless you. Thus, ultimately, you will reap the supreme blessing. 12. Cherished by your spirit of sacrifice, the gods give you everything you want. But remember, whoever receives gifts from the gods without offering anything back is a thief. Commentary. There are 5 types of giving and taking. The Gita gives names to them. If you take 100% and don't give anything in return, you can be called a thief. If you take 100% and give 50%, you're a debtor. If you take 100% and give 100%, you're a good business person. That's how business should be done. Give in return for what is received. If a business person gets $10, he or she should be sure to give $10 worth of goods and services. That's fair business. Next, if you take 50% and give 100%, you're called a righteous person. But if someone takes nothing and gives even 10%, 15%, or 100%, whatever possible, what do you call that person? A saint, a yogi. We should always examine our transactions and discover in which category we put ourselves. 1, thief. 2, debitor. 3, business person. 4, righteous person. Or 5, saint. And if you're already 1, try to be 2. If you're already 2, try to promote yourself to 3. Stop not until the 5th category is reached. It's nice to keep this information handy. Yajna is so beautiful. So much could be said about it. The whole life is an offering. 13. Righteous people who eat what is left after yajna are freed from past sins. But those who prepare food only for themselves are creating more sin. Commentary. What does it mean? You don't cook just for yourself, but to feed others. If there's anything left over, then you eat. Then you are free from sin. Not that you're doing any charity, but you're simply not committing a sin. I'll give you an example from the Hindu Dharma of virtuous teachings. Because I'm a little more familiar with the Hindu Dharma, I often find examples there, but don't immediately bottle and label me. The same Dharma prevails everywhere, without doubt. It's Catholic Dharma, Protestant Dharma, Jewish Dharma, and Muslim Dharma. The truth is the truth. In the Hindu Dharma, if a mother cooks some food, the father should come out of the house and look this way and that for at least 15 minutes. If he sees somebody walking, he should ask, "Sir, ma'am, did you eat? Would you like to have some food?" If some passerby haven't eaten, then bring them in and give them food until they say, "Enough, enough." Then if there's anything left over, the family eats. If the guests eat everything, you shouldn't even cook again. It means God didn't want you to eat that day. Your own self has already eaten in the form of those guests. There is a lovely story from another section of Mahabharata epic. Once the Pandavas conducted a great sacrificial yajna, a royal ceremony. It was done with all pomp and show, at a great expense. Many people came and were enjoying it very much, as they all sat and appreciated the meal. They saw a strange-looking mongoose running toward them. It started rolling in the remnants of the offered food and flowers there. Then the mongoose stood up, shook his head, looking completely disappointed. The host stood and said, "What is this? You're not an ordinary mongoose. You seem a little peculiar. We see one half of your body is golden, the other half is ordinary mongoose color. How did this happen?" "Oh, that's a long story. I don't know whether it's worth telling you." "Please tell us," they said. "We want to know." "Well then, because you're asking, I'll tell you. It was just an ordinary mongoose before, without this golden color. One day as I was roaming around, I came across a small hut, and I just sat outside and watched what was happening there. A poor teacher, his wife, his son, and daughter-in-law were living there. At the same time, there was a terrible famine. Food was scarce. They didn't have anything to eat, but fortunately, one of his old students had brought some flour to be cooked into some rotis, a kind of Indian bread. The teacher's wife was preparing it. Everything was ready. As usual, the teacher, a pious man, came out looking this way and that to see if anybody was there, because the scriptures say to treat as God the one who comes in the form of the guest. The teacher saw somebody coming and said, "Sir, would you like to have some food?" "Oh yes, I'm very hungry." He was invited in. The wife had 4 rotis, one for each person. So the teacher gave his share to the guest, and the guest ate it. Then the wife came up. "Sir, may I offer one more?" "Oh yes, yes. I don't know why I'm so terribly hungry." So he ate that also. When the son and daughter-in-law saw this, they came with their shares too. "Sir, we would like to offer these also if you can eat them." Lapachka. "I think I can." And he did. Then he said, "Thank you so much. God bless you all." And he just walked out. In half an hour, all the 4 collapsed and died because they were so weak from this terrible hunger. but I saw that they died in a state of joy. I was watching everything. I was also hungry, so I went in to see if anything had dropped to the ground as they made the rotis. I saw only a little flour and crumbs. It wasn't even fit to eat, so I just went there and rolled over in it. And when I got up, I saw half of my body had become golden. Then I understood, oh, there's something mysterious, miraculous, and divine in their actions. Yes, they truly dedicated their lives for the sake of another. They performed a truly beautiful yajna. Somehow I got this crazy idea. How am I going to get the other half also golden? So ever since that day, I've been traveling and rolling about everywhere. Then I heard that Yudhishthira, the great Pandava, was preparing the royal yajna. So I thought, surely this will be much greater than those 4 poor people. I came running all the way here, but now you see, the mongoose indicated his body, which was still only half golden, not so good. You should have seen Yudhishthira's face. So it's not the pomp and show, but the quality of your heart in the sacrifice that's important. In the Pandavas' yajna, there was also sacrifice, but probably it was mingled with a little pride. We're doing it. Those poor people had humility in their offering, and they really experienced God. In this light, we can judge our own actions. It might look like charitable, but is it really? Does it have that touch of selflessness? If your actions are like that, you're already liberated. You may still be in the human form, walking around like anybody else, but you're God on the face of the earth. That's the greatness of karma yoga. 14. From food, all beginnings arise. From rain, food originates. Rain is the result of selfless sacrifice, yajna, and sacrifice is the result of actions, karma. This chapter says we are all born to act, which is karma. But if our karma, our actions are selfless, sacrifice is born of that. That means karma produces the greatness of sacrifice. And because of that sacrifice, the elements become happy and rain pours down. From yajna, rain comes. Now you know why there's drought in many places. There's not much sacrifice in people's lives. And from rain, what happens? Food comes, and from food, beings come. That's the essence of the sloka. So your actions should be sacrificial. By your sacrificial actions, nature becomes beneficial to you. By that, you get abundance of supply. Food is not necessarily food that goes through the mouth. Here it means food that sustains you in every way. So for human sustenance, selfless actions that produce sacrifice are important. 15. Know that action, karma, comes from creative intelligence, Brahma, which is of the imperishable and the eternal, the all-pervading Brahma, thus is forever centered in self-sacrifice. 16. Anyone here on earth, Arjuna, who does not align with the revolving wheel, sacrifice, action, God, sacrifice, but instead chooses to waste his or her life delighting only in the senses, lives in vain. 17. Whoever delights in self, Atman, finds satisfaction in the self and is centered in the self, surely has no further duties. 18. Then at last there is nothing to get by doing something, action, nothing to lose by doing inaction, and no dependencies on anyone for anything. 19. Therefore, always do your duty without attachment. If you do things without desiring results for yourself, you will experience the highest state. 20. King Janaka and many others reached perfection through karma yoga, the path of selfless action. In order to guide others, you too should follow this path of action. 21. Whatever a great person does is followed by others who set their standard by his or her example. 22. Arjuna, There's nothing in the three worlds, earth, astral, and celestial planes, that I ought to do, nor anything for me to achieve that I have not already achieved. Yet I continue doing things. Commentary. What is that? What is it that the representative of God, an incarnation of God, would want to achieve? Nothing. No attainment is necessary. He has everything. He doesn't have to do anything to get anything. There's no need. God could just as well stay quiet, but says, having come into the world with a body and name, I'm continuously working. So don't think that when you have obtained everything, you'll just stop doing things. The mere fact that you're still a member of humanity means there is something for you to do. Sri Krishna explains, even though I don't need to obtain anything, if I do nothing, you know what will happen. All my students will follow my example. They'll say, look, he's not doing anything. Why should I do things? At least for their sake, then, I must be doing something. It's almost like seeing both, the students and the professor also going to college. There's no need for the professor to go to the college to learn, but if he or she doesn't go, the students won't go. This is a nice thought to remember. 23. If I ever stopped doing my continuous work, Arjuna, everyone would follow my example in every way. 24. If I stopped doing, the worlds would perish. I would confuse all species and cause the destruction of all creatures. 25. The unenlightened do things with attachment, wanting some results for themselves. An enlightened person does things with the same zeal Arjuna, but without attachment, and thus guides others on the path of selfless action. Karma Yoga. Just as an ordinary person performs actions with selfishness, the enlightened one also does things but without selfishness. The only difference, the ordinary person does things for his or her own benefit, and the enlightened one does things for others' benefit. The performance of actions for others is in no way inferior. In fact, Sri Krishna says the selfless person should even act a little more carefully and more efficiently than a selfish person. A yogi is acting for everybody's sake and should do a little better job. Sometimes the attitude is, since I'm not gaining much from this action, it's mainly for others. It doesn't matter how I do it, I'll just let it happen. Probably Sri Krishna knows this attitude is part of human nature, so he says, don't think that because you're acting selflessly, you can get away with something haphazard. In fact, you should do a better job. Who is yogi? The one who performs actions skillfully and efficiently. Why? Your interest is to serve others, since so many are going to be benefited by your actions. You should do a better job. If an ordinary person doesn't do a good job, then only he or she loses. But if you don't do a good job, imagine how many people will lose. (26) A wise person will not disturb the mind of an unwise person who is still attached to the fruit of his or her actions. But by continuously performing perfect selfless actions, the wise person influences others in all they do. Commentary. At one point, Sri Krishna says, even though at a certain point the need to perform actions naturally drops away, a realized person should not stop doing things. He gives himself as an example. See, I am Krishna, an incarnation. There is nothing for me to gain in this world. There is nothing I should gain by doing anything, but I work. Why? If I don't, others will say he's not doing anything, so why should I? Not working must be the sign of realization. Suppose a small child asks his uncle, who is that man with something hanging around his neck? He's a doctor. That's a stethoscope around his neck. uncle, I want to be a doctor too. Buy me a stethoscope. It's easy to copy. That's why teachers do things that actually there's no need for them to do. Their actions aren't for their own sake, but to set examples for their students. If they stop doing these things, the students will immediately follow their example. That's what Krishna is saying here. And he is also basically answering the questions. How would we work if we are not doing it for personal gain, but just for the sake of others? Should they be grateful for what we're doing? Can we do the work any way we want? Krishna says, no, that's not karma yoga then. Even an ordinary greedy person will do things well for his or her own benefit. We should do things just as well, if not better. Don't think that because it's a dedicated or karma yoga action, it doesn't matter how it's done. In fact, karma yoga actions should be done perfectly, even neater and tighter because they're offerings. Suppose that every day you simply make a little pudding and bread for yourself to eat. When you expect 100 guests and you're offering them something, would you still do the same thing? No, you do something special. It's not for yourself, that's the beauty of it. Whatever you do for your sake can be ordinary, but when you do it for the benefit of others, you're doing it for God. That should be a better job, not just equal to what you'd be doing in your own home. See how much is to be considered just in this path of action? 27. The qualities of nature, calmness, restlessness, inertia, do all that is done. But because the mind is clouded by ego, a person thinks, I'm the doer. 28. Arjuna, one may intuit the relationship between nature's qualities, gunas, and actions, karma. Whoever does so knows that nature as the senses merely abides with nature as the sense objects. That person identifies with neither and thus does not become entangled. 29. Those still deluded by nature's qualities become attached to nature's functions. But one of perfect understanding should not disturb the mind of someone who does not know better. Dedicate all your actions to me, then your mind will rest in the self, Atman, free of the wishing and selfishness fever, and you can engage in battle. 31. Whoever lives by these teachings with faith and without complaining will transcend karma. Those who don't live by these teachings, however, but look instead to criticize them, misunderstand everything. They have no discrimination, viveka, and are ruined. 33. Even a wise person follows his or her own nature, as all beings follow their own natures. Why try to force anything to be otherwise? 34. It is natural for the senses to be attracted or repulsed by various sense objects, but don't for a moment come under their domination, or surely they will be your enemies. 35. It is better to do your own dharma, calling, even imperfectly, than someone else's dharma perfectly. Even better to die in your own dharma than in another's, which brings great fear. Commentary. Is this a little confusing? What is your dharma and what is somebody else's dharma? What you're truly called to do is your dharma. It fits your aptitude, your capabilities, and your natural inclination. Constitutionally, your dharma, physical and mental, is to walk. Look at a snake. If you try to crawl like that, it's not your dharma. It might look cute, but remember you're created to walk. Don't try to imitate the crawling species. This is just a rough example, but often we come across the situation, for example, in the name of equality. I must do everything he does, only then I'm equal to him. If he jumps, I should jump. If he flies, I should fly. If he drives a tractor, I should drive a tractor. Only then I'm equal. That attitude is terribly wrong. Remember, even science has shown that there is no duplication in creation. No two snowflakes are exactly the same. As such, you're also unique. You have been created unique with certain abilities that no other person can do. That's your Svadharma, your individual duty. Find out what your Svadharma is. Ask yourself, how do I feel when doing certain things? Does something come easily? Is it natural for me, or am I trying to imitate somebody? First, take stock of your natural inclination and your capability, which is your taste, temperament, and capacity. With some things, it's so natural. You're like a fish in the water. You just know, that's what I'm meant to do. In Sanskrit, it's called your Svadharma. But remember that Svadharma is different from karma, which is just an action based on a selfish interest. Svadharma is something righteous. It's something completely natural to you that you could do to benefit others. That's Svadharma. You can't say my Svadharma is to steal. I feel naturally inclined to take something from somebody's pocket. It's to my taste. No, the word dharma always implies the benefit of others. There's no personal desire behind it. Think what your Svadharma is and try to do it. If you're an expert cook, that's your Svadharma. It just came to you naturally. Good. Cook for everybody. But if you're naturally inclined to work somewhere in the field, then that's your Svadharma at this time. Your Svadharma may change over the years. As you grow, your thinking becomes different. The Svadharma of a baby is to crawl, an adult to walk. It can change, but it just flows. It's not that you consciously decide saying, that's no good, I'd like to do this instead. It flows. Even without your knowledge or planning, new things come. I can give you an example from my own life. From the very beginning, I never planned anything. Even from the time birth and childhood, I was taken to school, from there to high school, from there into the business field. All this happened so naturally. It wasn't that I said this is no good and this is nice. I got some special education in a technical field, but later I was naturally drawn to take care of a temple. Look at that, from technical education to temple management. But it happened so naturally, so I just went along. I moved from one place to another until I went to Rishikesh. Even from there, naturally, I was pushed to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and from there to the Far East countries, all by nature and without my planning. And from there, naturally, into Europe, and later into New York. Probably that's why they call me a neutralized citizen. See, it develops. Remember that you have been brought into this world not for your job. You have nothing to do here. You have nothing to gain, nothing to lose. You didn't come planned. Did you consciously plan to be born in California in the womb of so-and-so? No, you were just pushed along. You are brought along stage by stage. You don't have any responsibility of your own. Remember that. And you didn't come according to your own plan. You're not going to leave according to your own plan. You have been brought here and you will be kept here as long as one up there needs you. Whoever it is, the minute he or she thinks your job is over, all the Divine One has to do is just turn off the switch. No air will enter your lungs. Finished. The doctors say heart failure. The yogis say stop breathing. The breath refused to go in. That's it. Finished. Somebody was pumping the air in and out and stopped pumping, so you don't get the air anymore. It's okay, just flow. Feel the unseen hand directing your every minute, taking you along from one thing to another. Know that it's always unplanned by you and for the good of everybody. That's Svadharma. But very often people think some other person's work would be better. That's the tendency of the mind. The other grass is always greener. Turn the tide of that mentality. Know that you are wanted. You have been sent here and given special skills. You might think, I don't seem to have any special skills, but you eat and you sleep, don't you? Even these are special skills. Don't belittle yourself. Don't degrade yourself thinking I'm no good, I'm wasting my time, I'm a burden to people. People go crazy thinking like that. You aren't a burden to anybody. If a supreme intelligence thinks that you are a burden to somebody, it won't be wasting the breath on you. The next minute it will be turned off, finished. God is no fool to keep you as a burden here and still keep you and put breath into you. Thirty-six. Then Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, what force is it that drags us into sin, even against our will, as if by some compulsion? Commentary. You want to know the origin of the sin? Arjuna asks, what drags people into committing sin? Though they don't want to do such things, still unwillingly they're dragged into it. Is there some force behind it? He asks. Often we come across this in our lives. We don't want to do certain things. We even know it's terribly wrong, but still some forces seems to be pushing us. Go ahead, get it. It's all right. No wonder Arjuna asked Krishna, what is this? 37. The blessed Lord said, know that the enemy here on earth is personal desire and anger, which arise from all the consuming rajasic guna, restless quality of nature. The blessed Lord says it's nothing but commentary. The blessed Lord says it's nothing but personal desire. You're wanting it. Your desire overpowers your intelligent discrimination. It's a fight between your lower selfish desire and clear thinking. Such desire is caused by rajas. It's all-consuming. It's the cause of sin. Remember, this is your deadliest enemy. Says Krishna. Selfish desire and the wrath that comes out of that when you don't get it, you get angry. Both desire and the wrath are caused by rajas. 38, 39. Like fire covered by smoke, like mirror covered by dust, like the unborn fetus completely surrounded by a membrane, just so is the wisdom in humankind covered over by the insatiable fire of desire, the constant enemy of the wise. 40. The senses, mind, and intellect are the seat of desire. Senses, mind, intellect are the seat of desire. It is the desire that veils wisdom and deludes people. Therefore, Arjuna, first take control of your desire, the sinful destroyer of wisdom and self-realization. Commentary. In other words, learn to control the mind through pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses from the sense objects. By controlling the senses indirectly, you're controlling the mind. The senses by themselves are senseless. It's not the eye, the ear, or the tongue that sins. The tongue doesn't overeat, the hand doesn't pick someone's pocket. It's the mind using all these senses. To stop the car, you apply the brakes while sitting at the wheel. The wheels are more or less like the senses. The engine is like the mind. The engine makes the wheels move. Disconnect the engine from the running shaft. Though you disconnect the engine by the declutching for a time, momentum will continue to move the car. Even though you put the clutch into neutral, the car isn't going to stop immediately. If you're going at a good speed, so apply the brakes also. That's why there are two pedals next to each other. Try to detach your mind from the senses. But if they are already away from the objects of the senses, then also make a determined decision. For instance, if you're trying to control the tongue, say, I won't eat anything between meals, no matter what. You're also putting on the brakes. If you refuse to go, what can your tongue do? That's the way. Put blocks on the senses, and through the senses, you control your mind. 42. The senses are stronger than the body. The mind is stronger than the senses. The discriminating intellect, buddhi, is stronger than the mind, and Atman is above the intellect. 43. Now that you know that Atman is beyond even discriminating intellect, buddhi, you can control the lower self with Atman, the higher self, and although it's difficult, utterly destroy your deadly enemy, personal desire. Thus ends the third discourse of the Bhagavad Gita, the Science of Yoga, entitled Karma Yoga, the Yoga of Action. Om